Hello and good day, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Sean David. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode, we got a very special guest in the house, a true legend. He was the original Reese in Terminator 1. Michael Biehn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah.
No, Michael, we talked a little bit before the interview and you had many interesting things to say, but I want to rewind it back. And my first question is, what was your original thoughts when you received the script of a movie with the title Terminator?
Well, in hindsight, there are a lot of people that say, well, gee, I read that script and I knew right away. And I certainly did not. I had no idea who Jim Cameron was. Nobody really knew who Jim Cameron was. I was a young actor. I think I was 27 or 28 at the time. I wanted to work with De Niro. I wanted to work with Al Pacino. I wanted to work with Jack Nicholson. I wanted to work with Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty and those kind of guys. And when I was approached about working in a movie about a robot that had come back from the future and was hunting down a woman, and the robot was being played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got to be perfectly honest with you. I was not, jumping up and down. Oh my God, this is a great part. I got to do this. I got to be in this movie. Now, I did audition for that movie. I didn't audition for a long, long time, 15 or 16 years after that. I didn't audition, but I did audition for it. So I believe at the time I had done some other movies, and I had I think they offered me a pretty fair amount of money. And what I felt was, when I read it, is that I could play that character. I knew that I could play that character, and I liked the fact that he was sort of this lean, mean fighting machine, but kind of soft, with a heart of gold and in love with this woman. And I liked the character a lot. But nobody, and I mean nobody, had any idea that movie, that I would still be talking about it 40 years later. Even when the movie came out, people think about the original Terminator as being this big hit. It did well. I think it made about a little over $40 million. It was made for $6.5 million. So it was successful, but it just barely cracked the top 25 box office movies that year. I think it came in 24th. So it was not something that was this huge, huge hit at the time. That movie basically became what it was because of something that your audience probably won't even understand, but we used to watch movies on something called VHSs.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah. And I think that most people did not see that movie in theaters. Most people saw it on their televisions on VHS. And it's taken a while for that movie to, and there's a couple of movies I've done. Tombstone's another one that it came out. There were not just, everybody just didn't talk about how brilliant the Terminator was when it came out. There were people who gave it bad reviews. I think Siskel and Ebert gave it, I think it might have been one thumbs down, one begrudging thumbs up.
Wow.
Back then when that was kind of important.
Yes.
There were some good reviews, but there were a lot of people, and even Orion, the company that released the movie, I don't think that they realized what they had, because they would have opened it in more theaters, and then they would have expanded the theaters, then they probably could have made a lot of money. It made a little bit of noise, but it was certainly not something that everybody was talking about in 1984. Now they've done 5 of them, and of course everybody knows it, and everybody knows the movie very well. And I'm very, very proud to have been in the first one. I'm very proud to have played Kyle Reese, and like we were talking about before, I'm the one who tells the audience the story and tells her who he is and tells her who she is and who I am. And all that exposition is difficult, but, with Jim doing it with all the action sequences, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We shot it downtown LA at night. It was all nights, just about all nights, as I remember. I worked at nights. So we were working 6 to 6. And I got to know Jim and Stan Winston because Arnold's option got picked up for Conan 2.
Yes.
So we were set to go do Terminator, and then Conan 2, Dino De Laurentiis told him he had to go do Conan 2, which he did, but that pushed our movie for 3 months or 4 months while he went off to do that. That's when I got to know Jim. And that's when I got to know Stan Winston. And Jim was a very inclusive kind of a guy. Come down, take a look at this, look at what we're doing. He's one of the few directors back in the day that said, hey, come to dailies. Want you to come see dailies every day, back when they did dailies. Hey, I've got Tech Noir cut together. Why don't you come and take a look at it? And it was at that point, it was during that 3-month period of time that I realized that Jim Cameron was really, really something special. And I think I became more and more excited about it once I got to know Jim and Stan Winston, and I spent a lot of time with Jim and Stan Winston in the studios, watching them work out how they were going to bring the Terminator to life.
Okay, now I'm curious, did you know Arnold Schwarzenegger before you actually shot the movie?
I didn't know Arnold personally. I certainly knew who he was, like most people that were living during that time, because he was Mr. Universe. And he, to this day, I think, has probably had the best looking, body of any bodybuilder in the history of bodybuilding. He'd done a little movie with Jeff Bridges. He had done Conan. So, yeah, I was certainly aware of him. And Jim Cameron needed a name like his to get the movie made. And Ryan and John Daly and Hemdale, they were looking for a name. And so I knew who he was. I didn't, I probably, like everybody else, and some people might say, I knew Arnold would, I, like most people, probably, well, I know that I underestimated him as not only an actor, but as a star, as a movie star, as an intellectual, as a sort of, at that time, I think I mentioned to you before, there were people, I was a young actor, so, I wanted to work with Robert De Niro. I wanted to work with Al Pacino. I wanted to work with Jack Nicholson. And Arnold Schwarzenegger at that time was not on my, list of people that I was dying to work with because, people, nobody accepted him as a serious actor, and he wasn't a movie star at the time. And yeah. Jim Cameron was not a well-known commodity, and so the fact that that Arnold, I can't think of anybody else during my lifetime in any sports, literature. I can't think of anybody that's gone from what I would almost call rags to riches more than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes. I mean, it's just unbelievable that a guy from Austria, who basically never really learned to speak the English language that well, as far as his action went, became this huge movie star.
Unbelievable.
Huge movie star. And then, what? You know what? That wasn't good enough. He decided, I think I'll become the governor of a state I can't even pronounce. Did 2 terms there. Married a Kennedy. For God's sakes.
He did it all, man.
Absolutely incredible. At the time, though, I was, and I was less impressed than I am now. Let's put it that way.
I understand. Another thing that was always interesting to me, or let's say, which I was always curious about, was the chemistry between you and Linda Hamilton. Was amazing. And I always wanted to know what was the secret, because a movie can fall if the chemistry between actors is not working. And the two of you, it just clicked. At least that's what it looked like on screen. What is your secret, or what was the secret back then?
Well, Linda and I, we did almost all our work together. It was all done at nights. I've said before that I fell in love with Linda while I was making the movie. I was married at the time. She was married. It's not like we hooked up or anything, but Linda has got, she's smart. She's a good actress, wonderful actress. She's very funny. She's got a wonderful, wonderful sense of humor and fun to be around. And she's hardworking too. Jim doesn't, he hires people that are passionate. And, she cared. And even though she played a character at the beginning of the movie, and you see what she did with T2, but she kind of had to play that character that was reacting. I got to be the guy that was in action all the time. Here, move here, do this, do that. He's coming, you're, in danger. We're in danger. And she had to play the character who was reacting, which is more difficult from an acting standpoint. I think it was a difficult shoot only in terms of the fact that it was nights. We were downtown LA. There was a lot of running and gunning and slipping and falling, and it was grueling to a certain extent with all that action that we did. And I think that we bonded around the fact that, and I bonded with her because she was just game. She was, and I think Jim always, they ended up getting married. I think Jim appreciated that about Linda too, that she was just game for whatever came up. And there was never any, well, I don't want to. Where's Linda? She's in her trailer. There was, she was just ready to go. And she was, we were both young then, but she was awfully attractive.
Yes.
Yes. And so, and that helped too, but she was a lot of fun. She really was a lot of fun and very, very hardworking. And like I said, I fell in love with her.
Now, you just touched the topic of Terminator 2. Like, I personally love the second one just as much as the first one, and I don't even want to say which movie is better because they're both amazing movies. But the transition or the transformation that Linda went through from a character standpoint was amazing. Like, she was a totally different person in the second movie, but not unrealistically. It just showed that she grew. She grew as a person. What was your initial thought when you saw Terminator 2 for the first time?
When it came to T2, and I knew that they had done that, but I was, kind of an unbiased viewer of that movie. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't a little jealous of Linda and Arnold and Jim and Gail and everybody that got to work on that. I probably did not appreciate that movie as much as other people did, because I just kind of wished I was in it. And there are a lot of movies around that, and a lot of good shows around that I don't think that I appreciate as much, like, because, I had a chance to be in certain things, and when you're disappointed, and I was disappointed, wasn't that disappointed when I found out they were making it. I mean, I knew that I died in the first one, and Jim shot a scene with me and Linda, and he wanted that to be in the movie. He wouldn't have shot the scene if it hadn't been. And he paid me well, and I went in and I worked a day or two on that, a day of rehearsals, and then we shot that scene. And so, I know that he wanted to kind of, keep me involved to a certain extent. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit jealous of it. I remember they had a screening of it in Century City, the first time, like, everybody saw it, the very first time that I saw it. And I think that I knew that I wasn't in it at that point, or maybe I was in that version. I've forgotten. But there were so many people that wanted to see it. They set up two big screens, and they had like 1,000 people watching it on one screen. That was like the number one screen, and that's where Jim and Gail, and that's where all the big agents and the big studio people were. And then they had a second screen, and that's where me and O.J. Simpson, and they put me over at the second screen, and I can remember just feeling a little bit left out. I was a little bit heartbroken that I was not, not heartbroken. Heartbroken, so that's not true, but a little bit disappointed that I seem to be kind of forgotten for the moment. And but looking back on it, and people talk about Terminator 2 and Terminator 1, and I think a lot about Alien and Aliens, and both of them are sort of the same. The first one is small, not as much. I mean, we made Terminator for $6.5 million. Terminator 2, I think they spent $126 million. So you can't really compare them. They also had CG. Did they have CG? I think they had CGI at the time. Yeah, they had CGI, which Jim did brilliantly, of course. Hey, one of the really cool things in that movie I remember was that nobody could figure it out. All the special effects guys were scratching their head. There was a scene where you might know this if you know the Terminator that well, but there was a scene where Linda, the Terminator, turns into her, and she fights herself in T2. Is that correct?
She fights herself. No, okay. Now you caught me on the wrong foot. Linda fighting herself.
Where Robert Patrick's character turns into her, and she basically is fighting herself in the movie. I believe it. I'm sure that because she only did 1 and 2 and 5, correct? She wasn't in 3 and 4.
Yes,
I believe. I could be wrong about that.
She wasn't in 6. Terminator 6. Yes,
right. Well, I believe in the second one. Because here's the whole story about it: is all the special effects guys couldn't figure out how Jim had done these effects where she was fighting herself, and nobody could figure it out, and everybody was scratching their head, and all the visual effects and special effects guys couldn't figure it out. Well, it turns out Linda has a twin sister, an identical twin sister, and they brought her in, and she...
No way! You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
Is this for real?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the cheapest and most effective way
exactly
worked best. Wow.
Yeah. You said you're a fan of YouTube, and just so your listeners and your viewers are aware of it, there's a great five-part series on the making of the Terminator on YouTube. Yes. And by the way, people ask me a lot, what was it like working with Arnold? And the answer to that question really is like, I don't really know because I never really worked with Arnold. And if you look at the movie, we were on Tech Noir. We were in Tech Noir that night, the same night. We were never in the same frame. I think the only time we're in the same frame in that movie is when he jumps in the car and smashes his hand through that window and grabs Linda. And so we worked. I was on the set with Arnold twice, where he was coming and going, and I was coming and going, and we'd see each other and say hello, and people asking me what he was like, and I'm like, yeah, kind of what you would expect a 33-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger, big, the cigar and the guns and the laughing and the women and it was just fun, and he was a bigger than life personality, one of those personalities that was just huge. But I didn't really. And, usually when actors work, they, well, hey, you want to run dialogue? What do you think about this? And so there really wasn't a lot of that. So I never really got to know Arnold as well as I wish that I had now,
Crazy. It's amazing that me being a fan and probably every other fan or most other fans, you see the final product and you just assume everybody sees everybody every single day. But in reality, yeah, now we hear the truth, the real stories behind it. Michael, before I let you go, I have one more question.
Okay.
Your favorite role of all time is?
Well, I have to break it down into good guy, an antagonist and a protagonist. And, my favorite protagonist is Kyle Reese. There's no doubt that character, that movie was a great character that I'm proud of. I thought he did a great job. I don't look at it and say, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that. Like I mentioned to you before, I give a lot of credit to Jim Cameron because he wrote that character. And I got to say words that he wrote. I didn't change anything. I didn't ask, hey, this dialogue. I just did, and because the dialogue was so good. So that's the best character that I've ever played as far as a protagonist goes. And I played a lot of antagonists. I played one in The Abyss. I played one in many movies, but the best one that also is a movie that 40 years later people still love is Tombstone and Johnny Ringo. When I played Johnny Ringo, and that's also a character that I didn't change any of the dialogue. In that one, I didn't have a director, so that was just all me. I didn't have a director saying, "Well, do this or do that." The director got fired. They brought in a new guy. I didn't listen to him. And so that was all me. And the stuff between Val and I thought was pretty special and pretty wonderful. So those are the two characters that I look back over a 40-year career. And I've done, dozens and dozens and dozens of roles. But those two are the ones that I'm most proud of.
You chose wisely. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. All the best to you. And thanks again.